Welcome to Memorial Cooking Innovations. I'm Tim Scallon, registered dietitian, and with me today is Chef Mike Hodgkin. Chef Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on Memorial Cooking Innovations. You come to us with a wealth of food service experience and culinary experience, and so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I graduated culinary school in 1974. And then I trained
1974, I remember back then.
Yeah, I had a little more hair back then, probably a little better color.
Did you wear leisure suits?
No, I didn't get into that too much. Yeah.
But I bet you went to the disco.
Once in a while to watch them. Yeah, let's watch. I was kind of a wallflower growing up.
I was out there.
Yeah,
I was out there.
I believe you were. I do. I believe you were. But anyway, I graduated in 74 and took a training. I trained under a French chef for 2 years. And then I took a position with the government, serving the Secretary of the Air Force in the Pentagon. Oh. And then after a while, I took a position with the government again, serving the Secretary of Education on Capitol Hill.
Now, Mike, let me get this straight. You worked both at the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill?
Yes.
Well, did you work with anybody that we would know?
Oh, I think a few. One of them so memorable is General Colin Powell.
You worked with General Colin Powell?
Yes, I served him a number of times. He was at the Pentagon because of that. He was a one-star back then.
Well, now, what was he like? I mean, this is like an inside. We all have a chance to learn. What was this man like? He's memorable because I remember him. Yeah. But he was probably one of the most focused men I've ever met. He's so focused, you just knew you were in greatness. You were in front of greatness, yes. Whoa, what a neat
amazing
experience.
Man.
Well, anybody else that we would know?
And some people may remember Barbara Bush.
Well, yeah, I remember Barbara Bush.
Yeah, another nice lady. I served her a number of times.
Whoa.
She was very into the adult illiteracy. Yeah. And because I worked for the education department, so she was there quite often.
Okay, all right. Well, that is really neat. Well, okay. Well, Chef Mike, tell us what we're cooking today.
Today we're going to do a Manhattan Clam Chowder. Okay. And it's a flavorful chowder that I think we'll like. Well,
and so I've heard Boston Clam Chowder. Now, you call that New England Clam Chowder.
New England Clam Chowder, yes.
And then now we're talking Manhattan Clam Chowder. So what's the difference in those?
Well, the major difference is the addition of tomatoes to the New England Clam Chowder recipe, and usually a spice. They say always put like a dash of Tabasco and a dash of Worcestershire, where the New England is kind of a bland chowder. This one's got a little more flavor. Being that I moved here to Texas, I've discovered the poblano pepper, and that has so much flavor that I took the poetic license and I kind of removed the Tabasco sauce and added the poblano pepper. And I think it makes a prettier, a better all-around chowder.
Well, so for those of us who aren't familiar with chowders, would it be fair to say that a New England or Boston clam chowder is white and a Manhattan clam chowder is red?
Yes.
Would that be true?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, here's the next question that some viewers might ask. So, Chef Mike, here in Texas, why Manhattan clam chowder?
Well, the clam is, it's just such a classic dish. And I think since it has the spice, it has a little bit of a flair of Texas in it. So I thought we'd kind of bring the north to the south. Okay, we're bringing the north to the south. Okay, I like that. I remember, it's been a few months back, we did a linguine and clams dish. And when we were doing that, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but it's because I had in my mind that clams were going to be a strong fishy flavor. Right. I'm thinking of canned seafood. I'm thinking this. I had an idea that I just didn't like it. But of course, it wasn't that way at all. No, they're not. They're a very delicate flavor, and that's in a chowder, especially a chowder like this, where it has some of the strong flavors. You got to make sure you're careful not to wash out the clam flavor. Okay. You got to balance it pretty well.
So you're going to be working on balancing flavors in this dish.
Yes, sir.
Good thing we have a chef, huh?
Well, we're going to work at it.
All right.
Now, first we're going to put in a little bit of the oil, so get that warmed up.
Okay, so you got some good extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah. And the one thing you want to remember about this sauce, if you were making fajitas or something along that line, you'd want to have the vegetables go in hot oil. And this one,
you want it just a little bit of bubbling, like that.
Okay.
Because you don't want that caramelization that you would have with vegetables made for fajitas.
Okay.
Because that will cause little floaties to come to the top of your soup.
Which you don't want.
You don't want that. No.
Okay, so
It makes it a little ugly.
and when you say caramelization, you're talking about like if you were talking about an onion, for example,
Exactly.
it would be that brown, dried up
The flavor, it makes the flavor of the onion. It really makes a difference. What makes an onion sweet?
Okay.
Yeah. If you took a bite of an onion, your onion is it's gonna bite back.
Be too strong. Yeah. Okay.
But if you saute it off and get it to a caramelization to that mode, it turns sweet.
Okay.
Because all the sugar's coming out of it.
So you want it started, but you don't want to go to the brown stage.
You don't want to go to the brown
is what you're
stage,
saying.
right?
I got you. Okay.
As
Okay.
you
So
see,
you've got diced carrots and you've got celery. Now let me ask. You've diced all these ingredients really small. So is that characteristic of this dish, or tell me about that?
Well, I like all my chowders and soups to have very small vegetables.
Okay.
Because the flavor of a soup is in the combination of all the vegetables and the meats.
Okay.
So you don't want to just like get a spoonful of potato.
Okay.
That
gotcha.
blinds everything else.
Okay.
So you want to keep it where you have all the flavor. Myself, I can taste the sauce. I just take the broth.
Okay.
That's where the flavor is going to be.
And so is it then a general rule in making a soup or a chowder that you want your ingredients cut to more than one fits in a spoon?
Yeah, and but then when you start going into soups, especially like say a tortilla soup,
Yeah.
you may want to go a little bigger vegetable because as it boils or cooks at a high rate, the vegetables will dissipate. So if you make them too small, you're going to have tomato soup. You won't have the vegetables.
Oh, I see.
So it depends on the soup, but basically in chowders, you want to stay fairly good because you're not going to boil very long.
Well,
you want it small.
And that's one of the things that I get a lot of questions from our viewers. One of the reasons that people watch Memorial Cooking Innovations is to learn just some of the basics of cooking. And one of the questions is, how do I know how to cut these vegetables? And so, what would you answer to that?
Oh, it would depend on the recipe and how long it's cooked, what's the medium it's cooked in, and if you want that particular vegetable to be predominant over everything else.
So it really boils down to, it depends on what I'm doing with that ingredient.
Yes,
okay.
You can't just have a standard. That's why there's different cuts for, like Japanese or Oriental cooking has a different cut.
Okay.
Peasant-style cooking in Europe is a different cut.
Okay.
And then we have the Julienne cuts and all the different cuts they have. There's reasons for all that.
Okay.
There's always reasons.
Right. Okay. And so in this case, if I'm making a soup and I want all the ingredients to fit in the spoon, I'm going to cut them to be small enough to do that.
Right.
Okay. Now, also I noticed in your recipe, you wanted to have the potatoes pre-cooked. Yes. So tell me about that. Why did you choose to use pre-cooked potatoes?
Basically, the potato has to cook for a certain amount of time, say 10 minutes at a rolling boil, or at least at a high temperature. And if you put it in your soup, and then you have your cream, it's a very good, you're creating a high-risk area of breaking the cream, which will be separating the cream.
Okay, so you don't want to boil the cream.
No.
And when you say break the cream, and I've heard you use this term before when you're talking about cream sauces. So when you say break the cream or break the sauce, you mean separate the fat from the water?
Yes, you actually see little nodules of fat in floating around in there.
Okay.
It's not pretty.
Yeah, okay, all right. So we're learning some culinary terms here with you, Chef Mike, today.
Thank you.
And we appreciate that. Okay, and so, before the show I was looking up a definition for chowder, because, we don't really eat chowder in Texas, that I'm aware of anyway. And so the definition I found was a thick soup with fish and vegetables, usually potato and onions, that is either in a milk or tomato sauce or base. Now, would you agree with that definition?
I would agree with it if it was expanded to include all meats.
Oh, okay, not just seafood.
Right, because there's some really nice recipes out there, like the Cheeseburger Chowder.
Okay.
It's ground beef and cheese, and it's in a cream base. It's
See, that's
really
not a seafood chowder. Now, I'm guessing that's a dish that's regional to the Northeast, where you're originally from.
Well, it might have originated from the Northeast, but it's a Sodexo recipe, so it's a national recipe.
Okay, so it's one of the Sodexo recipes, and a lot of people may not realize that here at Memorial, in the hospital, and of course you're over the food service that serves the patients. They may not realize all the different recipes that Sodexo has.
Oh yes, there's quite a number.
And they're international recipes.
Yes, it's a French-based company, so it's our France-based company. So.
Okay, so how are we doing? It's smelling really good.
Yeah, it's starting to come along, and.
Now you hadn't put that garlic in there yet.
Yeah, I was thinking of debating
you want that
whether
in there?
I want it towards the end, and I think this would be a good time right now.
Okay.
Because that will brown really quick.
Okay.
And it will float right to the surface. So you don't want to. That's one of the last ones. And garlic, especially when it's chopped as fine as this, you could put it there at the very end if you wanted to, because the flavor is still going to be there.
And here again, you're trying to not overpower the clams.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. This is looking great, and it's smelling wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it's a very hearty chowder. Very hearty chowder. Now, we're putting the tomatoes in now, even though because they're a little chunky, but you want them to dissipate a little bit.
Okay. Well, and one of the things that we use in this recipe is not necessarily the brand, but what I'm interested in is this no added salt. And of course, we do this in a lot of our recipes because that puts you more in control of how salty the dish is.
Yes, yes.
And it's the same reason that we sometimes use a low sodium vegetable broth, for example.
Right, and that's why we use a lot of when you have your spices or especially things like garlic salt. People have to look if it's the salt's the first ingredient, or even if it's in the ingredients, you want to try and stay away from it.
That way, I'm in control of how salty it is and how much garlic I use. Yeah.
The more when you buy something, the more prepared it is, the more likely it's going to have salt.
All right. Another good cooking tip. All right, we're just learning a lot today. That is really looking good and smelling good. Okay, so what's next?
We're going to add the clams.
All right. And if you don't know, you can find clams here at your local Brookshire's on the same aisle as with tuna fish. So it's on the canned meat aisle. And in fact, it's real close to the tuna.
Then we'll just add the cream.
And here comes the cream. And in this recipe, of course, we always collaborate on the recipe. Traditionally, you would have used a heavy cream in this. Is that right? But you agreed to go with me on using the fat-free half and half.
I brought it with me just to show. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. When you put a chef and a dietitian together, it's amazing what you can do. All right, so here come those potatoes. Okay.
As you see, this is it's almost a stew. It's very,
beautiful.
very thick and pretty. And this is another, myself, and this is a personal preference, I like if I'm using fresh herbs, I always like to put them towards the end.
Okay.
Because they sometimes will turn bitter.
Okay. Now
this is basil and oregano.
Okay, so what you've done is you've diced your basil and oregano small, and then you've combined it.
Right.
Okay. All right. So basil always goes with tomato. I've learned that.
Right. Oh, wonderful basil. And then we're just going to do a little bit of just a touch of salt and pepper, just a touch.
All right. There again, you had combined those ingredients.
Yes.
And
isn't that a pretty soup?
It's beautiful. Look at the colors.
Now, one of the other difference I did, which really doesn't change the recipe, is just, again, a personal preference. To add a little color, I used red onions instead of white.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if there's any nutrient difference in that.
I'm not aware of any. Onions.
Sometimes they say darker colors have more value.
Well, actually, that's true. You're correct to point that out.
You told me that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so I must know something about this.
Well, I would think so. Yeah. You've taught me a lot. Yeah.
But in general, well, and same back to you. In general, onions and garlic are just very nutrient dense foods.
Right.
Of course, actually, everything that you've put into this soup is a healthy food. Those
it's
herbs.
very healthy.
Yeah,
it's very
carrot.
healthy.
You know, people kind of rag on potatoes a lot because they're a starch. Well, if they're French fries, that's one thing, but actually the potato is a very healthy food.
It's the sour cream and the butter and all the things I like to put on it that really, that's what destroys it.
But you know, the potato itself, like in this dish, they contribute a lot of nutrients to this dish. And I noticed that you left the peelings on them. Now, did you do that for me or just out of preference?
No, I always do.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a little bit lazy, and I was so happy when that became a fad. But it is also very, very good for you. That's where, in fact, you can verify for me that where the skin is where all the nutrient value is.
It's right, not all, but they're it's concentrated
right on
the
the
skin.
surface.
Well, and you know, I'm a texture guy. You know how some people may not know, but we appreciate different things in food. You know, like most of us think it's all just about the flavor, but you know, texture and temperature and of course
visual.
You're the one who told me we eat with our eyes.
Yes.
So appearance, So for me, the texture of those peelings just adds to the dish.
Right.
And you've got a lot of great textures in here too.
Yes, it should be very good.
Well, okay, so how long do we cook this for?
Well, we're going to let it simmer for about 20, 25 minutes.
Okay. All right. Okay, Chef Mike, I have to ask you, since we've got a certified chef with us today, this is a very common sauce. It's probably in everybody's pantry, and it's also very commonly mispronounced.
Right.
So, Chef Mike, how do you say the name of this sauce?
Well, from the north and with my accent, we always call it Worcestershire.
Worcestershire.
Yes.
Okay, Worcestershire. It just seems like it has too many letters in it.
Yeah, it's a long word.
Okay, so Worcestershire.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm laughing because all of my life I've mispronounced this word. In fact, I've always called this Worcester, but it was just out of ignorance.
Well,
So I'm glad you finally helped us all to know how to say this sauce.
well, it's the northern way, we'll say.
Well, okay, so Worcestershire. All right. Well, another thing while we're on this is this is actually a very high sodium ingredient.
Yes.
But I noticed you just used a dab in this.
Yes, because the high sodium, you don't need a lot. Because again, you get that delicate flavor of the clams.
And this is a strong flavor.
It's a strong flavor, and it kind of counteracts the tomatoes a little bit, so you won't
Okay.
get that acidity so much.
So you're balancing flavors
Yes.
again. Okay, do you remember, it might have been a year ago, I was telling you about this pot that was my mother's, and it was had a lot of, it was totally black on the bottom. And so I was asking you the best way to clean this, and you gave me some good advice. It cleaned up pretty good, huh?
Yes, it did, yes.
And whenever I brought this pot in, you reacted. I mean, so tell us about this pot.
Well, this is a really good pot. I wish they hadn't stopped making them. But with the rings in the bottom, that gives it a double thickness of steel in the bottom. Okay. So when you're sauteing your vegetables...
Now let me see that a minute before you go on. So what you're saying is the reinforced heavy metal is what...
It will disperse the heat.
Oh, okay.
The heat will hit this and just go around.
So it won't burn as easily.
It won't burn as easily, right?
Okay.
And so when you're sauteing vegetables, like for spaghetti sauce, a perfect example is spaghetti sauce. You take peppers and onions, whatever in here, saute them off, add all the other ingredients, bring it to a boil. Then you put the lid on it, and you can take the whole thing and put it in the oven.
Even with this
This
top?
lid at this top will take up to 350 degrees.
Okay.
Water boils at 212, so you want to keep it around 225, 250. You put it in the oven, and in 4 hours, you'll have a sauce that you thought was cooked for 2 days.
Okay.
It is wonderful.
All right.
And you never have to stir it.
And this is called a club Dutch oven.
Yes, a club Dutch oven, yeah.
Okay.
So if you have one of these at home, this is a keeper.
Okay, all right. There's an old myth that cooking with aluminum poses health risks, and I'd like to share some facts about that. There is no evidence that aluminum causes Alzheimer's disease, as was once suggested by researchers. However, if you want to avoid exposure to aluminum, the best way is to avoid antacids containing aluminum and to use deodorants rather than antiperspirants. Deodorants don't contain aluminum, antiperspirants do. Many over-the-counter medicines contain aluminum. One antacid tablet, for example, can contain 50 milligrams of aluminum, and a buffered aspirin might contain anywhere from 10 to 20 milligrams of aluminum. In contrast, a person using uncoated aluminum pans for all cooking and food storage every day would get about 3.5 milligrams of aluminum daily. So when we're comparing cookware to medications, obviously medications are a much more significant source of aluminum. And this tells us that really cooking with aluminum cookware doesn't pose a health risk. Now, given that, storing highly acidic or salty foods such as tomato sauce or citrus fruits or sauerkraut in aluminum pots may cause more aluminum to enter the food, and this is not recommended. These foods will also cause pitting on the surface of the pan. And so if you have one of these club pots that came from your mother or grandmother and it's pitted, then probably she cooked the dish, and when everybody was done, she stored the leftovers in the refrigerator. I remember my mother doing the same thing. And that's what causes that pitting on the surface. And so that's something we shouldn't do. But it is okay to use Grandma's old aluminum cookware, and I'm glad about that.
Well, Tim, looks like our chowder's coming together.
Ooh, that is beautiful.
Yeah, it's starting to smell really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now with this chowder, it's such a hearty chowder, it really doesn't need, it's almost a meal in itself. But a great accompaniment is oyster crackers. But being here in the South, people may decide to have a cornbread.
Well, okay, so this would go good with cornbread.
Oh, it goes great with cornbread.
Well, and you know, oyster crackers, if you're not familiar with those, they're a little cracker that I guess are designed to go in the bowl with the soup, is that right?
Yes, they just float right on top of the soup.
And you can find these at Brookshire's. They're on the cracker aisle.
Yeah.
Mike, that looks delicious. Yeah. So how's it taste?
I'll let you be the judge.
Okay.
I'll judge for myself.
Yeah. Oh, that is delicious.
It tastes like home.
Yeah, makes you think of home, huh?
It sure does.
Oh, that is delicious, Mike. Okay, so I see what you mean about it being a hearty dish. And I noticed that, of course, you brought your club pot too, your Dutch oven, and you didn't really worry about that burning on the bottom at all, huh?
No, it won't stick or burn. The one thing I have in mind is it's got a Silverstone finish.
Yeah.
But you got to keep it away from the kids and the family. Yeah, that's my pot.
That's
Nobody
like your
touches my
knives.
pot, yes.
Yeah, your knives. Yeah. Okay.
One
Chefs
scratch, never ruined.
They're picky about their knives and their cookware.
Right.
Well, today we've learned about the different kinds of chowders, and we've defined a chowder. And we learned how to, I learned how to say, say it again for me.
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire sauce, okay. We also talked about how to cut the different ingredients in a dish so that they all come out the same doneness.
Right.
And in this case, you pre-boiled the potatoes in order to accomplish that. Right. And of course, we brought in some of our products that you see us use over and over, the fat-free half and half, so it gives us back a good thick cream soup.
Right.
And could you tell the difference with this fat-free half and half and regular?
Not so much.
Really?
No, not so much.
So it passed the chef test?
Yes, it will. It will pass the chef test.
Okay, all right. And also, of course, we talked about low sodium, no added salt, diced tomatoes. And so, Chef Mike, I just want to thank you for sharing your culinary expertise with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Okay, and so join us next time as we continue to change the world one bite at a time. Memorial Cooking Innovations is made possible through the generous efforts of Brookshire Brothers, a celebration of family and community, CHI St. Luke's Memorial, the Polk Education Center, Sodexo Food Service, and the City of Lufkin, KLTX Channel 15.